we'll get into that a little bit. And at least this afternoon, we have not heard from Coach Beamer in just about a week. And we'll hear from him actually coming up this afternoon, 1 o'clock. I am semi-interested to hear what he has to say, because that means tomorrow morning we get to pick and prod and overanalyze and read between lines, read over lines, and figure out what he means when he says maybe Lenora Sellers is back and ready to go. Pete Thamel putting out a tweet yesterday, but basing it on a depth chart, that Lenora Sellers is back.
Right, yeah. And that's when you like to look at the national reports like, come on, man. Y'all been doing this a long time. Why do you assume that because somebody put something on a piece of paper here that you just – so I say all that to say maybe you shouldn't trust national reporters. That's what I say.
Yeah, so that was put out there. Yeah, Pete Thamel, that in-depth reporting there, is he just based
I do the same thing, Pete. I just read a headline and I'm like, sure, all right, let's roll with it.
Seems like a good plan to do. But no, we'll really start to get into it again this particular hour. We'll go through a lot of Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin has been around, I think, since we were in college, just kind of doing Lane Kiffin things. His coaching career is actually a very interesting one, Preston Thorne. I mean, if you really break it down, Lane Kiffin's actual coaching history is actually wildly interesting. For example, and we'll get into this, who remembers his wild days with I believe actually, I'm going to say this out loud and I'm just going to go with it, with the Oakland Raiders. Was it the Oakland Raiders or the Los Angeles Raiders?
Good question. It's a great question. Definitely not the Las Vegas Raiders, which they are now.
Exactly.
It's a great question.
Who remembers those days where Al Davis saw a rising star in the industry and decided to make Lane Kiffin his coach? I was there for the Tennessee game when he went to Tennessee, and the blackout game that they wore their black jerseys on a Halloween night up in Tennessee back in, I don't know, 07, 08, somewhere in that area, where I think it was 07, where he came in and popped South Carolina pretty good up there. Looked like he was going to have Tennessee becoming a juggernaut, and then left. And we'll get into all that. We'll get into all of that. But first, a couple other things from yesterday. Sad day. Ended up being a sad day in the sporting world, Preston, with the loss of Dikembe Mutombo yesterday. 58 years of old, passes away of brain cancer. Mutombo, if you listened to anything yesterday, just seemed like one of the most genuine, nicest guys in the sporting world. And just some of the little pieces I saw on him last night, all the way down to even a funny little clip from Shannon Sharp, who said he got to know him when they were in Denver, and said, if Dikembe walked into a gym and you were working out, your workout was over, because he was going to talk to you for 30 or 45 minutes.
That's good. That's funny. That makes sense. Imagine that's from Shannon Sharp saying that.
Shannon, yeah.
Yeah, so imagine Shannon Sharp being out-talked by somebody. That is a very strong feat.
That was one of the funnier things yesterday with Shannon Sharp. Yeah, again, kind of remembering Dikembe Mutombo and a lot of people. And also, Preston just talking really about the humanitarian he was, trying to take things back to where he was from and create hope. I think it was a $26 million hospital that he helped build, and a really, really cool story. And again, yesterday, more and more, not just basketball players, but people coming out and speaking to his character, speaking to who he was, and kind of as Shannon Sharp said, the guy was always with a big smile on his face.
Yeah, and also the idea of personalities. I think that's when you think about Dikembe and you think about Pete Rose, you think about personalities in sports, and a lot of times our sports figures are getting smoother and smoother as we get more introduced into corporate entities, and they're kind of more and more cardboard, and they say the right thing and they do the right thing and they all look the same and they all sound the same. These two characters are some of the reasons why, you think about Dikembe, obviously with the Cookie Monster voice.
Yes.
And they're telling people, no, just doing cool things in a game. It feels like it's time when sports had a little more character.
And then that brings us to the other guy you just mentioned there. Again, a sad day. Pete Rose, who I'll admit, I didn't really get to watch Pete Rose in his prime. I was born in '82, and that's about when Pete Rose was really, really in his prime.
I did see the Big Red Machine play.
Yeah, did
I was
you?
little.
In person?
In person,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
We went to Cincinnati and saw them play the Cubs.
Yeah, I didn't really get to see that, but learned of Pete Rose and ended up at a very early age collecting. I think I'm well over 100 and something. I hadn't looked in probably 20 years, but 100 and something Pete Rose baseball cards. Back when we used to collect baseball cards, and that became kind of a baseball idol of mine, even though I didn't really know him or know some of the stuff about him. Just Charlie Hustle. And you're right. You talk about a guy who was a completely different kind of personality than Dikembe Mutombo, but hate to see at age 83 yesterday, Pete Rose pass away.
Yeah. Obviously lived a long, fruitful life, known for his antics on the field. There's the controversy with him and gambling off the field, which surrounds his legacy. Unfortunately for folks that are my age, that's what you become more hearing of. You heard about the arguments about whether or not he'll get into the Hall of Fame, and that's the thing that surrounded his legacy for somebody of my age, born around the same time. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to enjoy his playing time in live action. So that is something that's interesting to go back and watch some of the highlights and watch some of the clips and sort of understand why this athlete meant so much to so many different people.
So again, yesterday, kind of a sad day there in the sporting world with the passing of Dikembe Mutombo and Pete Rose, baseball and basketball. And again, I think you make a good point, two entirely different personalities there for both of them. Also yesterday, the Braves, that was a wild end to the first game. I mean, an absolutely wild ending there, this 8th and the 9th. Made for great baseball. And then I do wonder, I put on the tinfoil hat, if there was a gentleman's agreement. All right, whoever wins game 1 lets the other win game 2. And if you think that theory's strong at 6:08 a.m. on the morning after, when Chris Sale got scratched not far after,
I think my back.
Like the most you play 161 games and it's the game 162 that decides your season essentially, and all of a sudden you yank your best pitcher and we don't know what's going on in the moments leading up to first pitch.
My back.
You couldn't have convinced me otherwise that the Mets hadn't said, hey, if we win game 1, we'll let you win game 2. And there were some plays in that game, and even the announcers commented late in the game that's, I can't remember exactly what it was, didn't exactly leg out a ball to first base. I think it was a ball to third base that was thrown across the diamond that they thought the runner should have probably run full speed and been safe. If I'm the Diamondbacks yesterday, I'm watching that game just going, we're sweeping these teams next year. We're doing whatever it takes. We're beating every batter for both teams.
Put themselves in a tough spot.
Yeah.
Put themselves in a tough spot to have to watch that. Yeah, that was pretty much, you could assume by that point that's how that was going to play out for both of those teams, especially like you said, when back spasms are a good thing to be able to say, because, who can say you're not having back spasms?
Right. Well,
kind of like, I'm a little nauseated or something like that, or I'm having whatever. Yeah, you don't really show anything.
Yeah, there's nothing you can really say.
Yep.
You're like, I'm having back spasms.
Again, it was yesterday at whatever, about 4:50, between 4:30 and 4:50. Oh, if I was the Diamondbacks watching all of that play out, I'd have been screaming conspiracy. But the Braves win game 2, and I'll even take it as far as this, Preston. I still think there was that handshake agreement because both of them had to fly out. Both of them had to get to somewhere. In New York's case, it was Milwaukee. In Atlanta's case, it was San Diego, because both turned around and played today. And I almost feel like it was, hey, just swing and miss pitches. Let's speed this thing up because we got to shower. We got to get on a plane. We got to go somewhere. And I feel like in the 8th, Marcell Ozuna, where guys on 2nd and 3rd disobeyed, and was like, I'm going to make sure we win by roping one to left field for 2 extra runs to make sure it puts the Mets to bed and we win this thing. And I'll extend this game by about another 15 to 20 minutes.
Also, I'm looking on here. Marzell had 39 homers. He might have been like, can I get 40?
Some contract,
Can I just get to 40? There's an extra little bonus out there for 40.
So it was interesting, but good for the Braves today. Today, Major League postseason gets going. Detroit and Houston at 2:30. That game will be on ABC. Kansas City and Baltimore gets going on ESPN2 at 4 o'clock. The Mets and the Brewers 5:30, and tonight, Braves and the Red Hot Padres taking on each other. That game on ESPN starting at 8:30 tonight. So we'll get into all of that. We've got a lot to do this morning. We'll talk a lot of college football, though, with you. 803-404-6100. Let's get out to the phone lines. Gamecock Larry wants to weigh in this morning.
Good morning. Yeah, that was old Monty Kiffin, Al Davis, and the up-and-coming Lane Kiffin. Long time ago. I thought he was a young fella, but he's pretty old. But I don't forget. I had a question I wanted to ask. Oh, yeah, what is the story, if you heard, on Lenore Sellers and Rocket Sanders? How are they doing? Have you heard anything new? I heard it was a high ankle sprain, and a high ankle sprain is hard to get over. You might think you're over it, and really you can't move around like you should. But old Voodoo called and hollering about Gilbert America. Voodoo, you done got you now 1-4. You ain't doing too bad. But I love all y'all. Talk to you later. Have a great day. Go Gamecocks.
Appreciate the phone call. We'll talk about this. Obviously, we'll talk a lot more about it tomorrow after we hear from Shane Beamer today, and we just try to decipher what he means with Rocket Sanders and with Lenore Sellers. If it means anything, both are on the depth chart. Preston, Lenore Sellers listed as the starter at football, at the quarterback position. Rocket Sanders also on the depth chart, and I think this is listed as starter. Juju McDowell or Oscar Attaway III appear to be listed as the backup. So if you're going by the depth chart, Sellers and Sanders listed as the starters, but they've also become kind of like Yeti or Bigfoot characters where everybody spotted them all over town without boots. We got a lot of public sources in this case weighing in where they've been spotted at a Subway or a McDonald's or somewhere at the Russell House, and they look fine, and others see them limping and hobbling around.
Best part of college football. What best part between this and flight tracking? This is when we really get into what college football is all about. Did you see said undergrad somewhere in your random town in America?
Yeah, they've got that nice nutrition hall over there, but I've seen him at Bernie's, and it looked like his ankle was missing.
Becomes a double story. It's like, what? He's eating Bernie's?
Yeah. Wasn't driving. So I was outside the practice facility. Couldn't even get in his car to drive. Had to have somebody. Who knows? We'll see. So, yeah, if you spot them around town, send in your instant. Take a picture. Try and get a picture. Don't treat these guys like Bigfoot or something where your camera couldn't quite get ready when you saw them, and now it's just hearsay. Yeah, it's a blurry camera vision of them walking around. 803-404-6100. We'll get into Mississippi a little bit. Take a look at Lane Kiffin, who's character, clown. What do we label Lane Kiffin? Well, we'll try and decipher. You're listening to Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jen Jensen. It is the Tuesday morning edition of the early game.
Hey, it's Jen for CHW Cabinetry in Lexington, a women-owned, locally owned business. All the demolition we had to do in the kitchen had to totally revamp it down to the studs. And when it came to picking out cabinetry, CHW Cabinetry came through for us in a big way. They were helpful in pulling things together. The photorealistic renderings showed a picture of the kitchen being done without it being finished, and that helped us when it came to pulling together everything else as far as flooring and backsplash and countertops and all of that. So that part was helpful as well, and they kept us informed every step of the way. If you have a pantry that's just not quite so functional, found something from 2018, maybe get some drawers put in there to make it a little bit easier. In a bathroom, get some better storage, maybe even a bedroom closet. You get the drill. If you need updates to be made, chwcabinetry.com is the place to go. Call them today at 803-520-6837. Be sure to tell them that Jen sent you. CHW Cabinetry, passion from inspiration to installation. We do have an accident reported I-26 eastbound there at I-20. So caution there. That obviously gets slowed down fairly quickly in that stretch of highway. Again, I-26 eastbound at I-20 malfunction junction, starting things off the wrong way. 83 for a high today under cloudy skies. Really a mix of clouds and sun for the next several. We stay around 84 or 85 tomorrow and Thursday. 83 on Friday for a game day. 85 Saturday. Right now, it is a little bit overcast, and it's 68.
Reminder, Shane Beamer press conference today, 1 o'clock. You can hear that right here on 107.5 The Game, 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. And then on Thursday night, we're back to usual Carolina Calls with Shane Beamer and Todd Ellis. Same thing. That'll be 6 o'clock right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia, 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. So you've got a couple chances to hear from Coach Beamer later this week, and we will start to get more into those injuries with him. As of right now, as we're kind of joking, Preston, we're just speculating and taking random sources, public sources who may or may not actually see Rocket Sanders or Lenora Sellers out and about wandering around a subway. I do think I saw someone post somewhere that they saw him at a subway.
That's patently false. Again, no disrespect to anybody who owns or operates a Subway, but these young people eat way better than Subway every day. unless they just were slumming for one day, it's like, oh, I just feel the urge to get a Subway. I'm going to go ahead and say that's not true.
It's not who they saw.
Do you know what these dudes eat every day? You think they're going to be like, oh,
need a Subway
just
sandwich.
Need a Subway, the meatball parm. Get out of here.
Hey, yeah, you have been watching. Who is it, Travis Kelce or Charles Barkley?
Yeah,
okay.
Nah, I don't think that's true.
So
remember Dylan Stewart said his favorite restaurant was Hall's.
Yeah, that's a good point. You got the starting quarterback and the starting running back who are eating Subway. Good point. Well played. 803-404-6100, how you can weigh in. So I don't know if there's been, to me, and I'm speaking for me, a more fun, more controversial, more annoying coach than Lane Kiffin over the last, I don't know if people realize this, it's been about the last 15 years or so that Lane Kiffin's just been out here tweeting and talking, and all the way back to the days when he was at Tennessee when he said he was going to turn in Florida for a recruiting violation that he had. He's been fun. I enjoy him. I love it. By the way, if you're wondering, 2009. So, yes, 15 years.
Lane is the player that is like, he's still playing.
And he's young.
And that's the thing is but is he younger than you think? I bet if you was to not look it up, I'm not sure if I could have guessed how old, because in one sense I'm thinking he's young, but in one sense I'm like, is he old? He's been around forever. He's been in the spotlight forever. He's been in high commanding positions forever. He's just somebody who's been around in the sports college football conversation for extremely longer than your child has been alive.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he's been around, and we still kind of think of him as a wonder kid a little bit, and he's not. And so it's strange, how do you evaluate Lane?
Well, let's start with this. Has Lane Kiffin matured? Do you think Lane Kiffin – let's just start with that, because I think that's the beginning of your conversation with Lane Kiffin.
I do think Lane has matured in a lot of cases.
But
and that's sort of the thing. I do think he has matured, but this is one of those cases where matured from where? Because Lane had a long way to go.
I don't think he has, but I don't mind it because Lane Kiffin is the master of the troll, and he enjoys it, and he loves it, and he knows it, and he stepped into that role. It's just become different. We have seen the true evolution. Lane Kiffin, if you want, is the sports evolution of Twitter. From saying stuff at your boosters meetings or preseason meetings to now just having random times to tweet out a South Carolina golf cart to a video of Juice Wells, Antoine Wells, running a route with, I believe, 2001 behind it? And going on, what was, I forget. I never really got into whatever he did several weeks ago with the Coca-Cola and kind of the back and forth with Brian Kelly.
Well, he got into a back and forth with Brian Kelly. He had a lot of conversation about Hugh Freeze and his handling of quarterbacks. So he's been around.
So no, I don't think he's, but I think what he has done is turn it from more of, I'm truly attacking you to I'm going to mess with you now. Kind of like a playful older brother who goes from just elbowing you in the driveway playing basketball, wanting to maybe beat you up a little bit, to the playful older brother who now like maybe pulls a small little prank on you.
But see, that's the thing. You say older brother, but nobody looks at him as the older brother. Everybody still looks at him as
the younger annoying brother that gets away with everything.
Yes, he's still Little Lane. And that's the weird thing about it, because he's not a young guy in some senses of the word. But then when, like you said, when he's picking on Brian Kelly, it still feels like he's the younger brother annoying you. When he's picking on Hugh Freeze, it still feels like he's the younger guy annoying you. And so he's still doing these things, and that's where it's strange to really put Lane's career in perspective as far as being a coach. But my question is, he's fun. He's a troll. Is he good? And again, we go back to that question again. Is he good? His record would indicate that, yes, he is a solid head coach. He's going to get your program from one state to the next. But he, to this point in his career, and it's been a long one since 2009, he has not won any game of any consequence in his whole career.
Did you give a stat last year? We were doing something, and Mississippi was going to play Alabama, and it was something like 2-26 against top 10 teams, or was that you who did that?
Yeah, we did. We had a number. I have another number this year, and that wasn't of top 10 teams, but in top games versus top 10 opponents, he's 3-15.
Okay.
And that doesn't even mention games where they just flat out stubbed their toe, i.e. Kentucky. And so he's been in the game for a very long time, since 2009, as we keep stating, but I don't know if he's ever actually delivered on the promise of who we think Lane Kiffin is supposed to be as a coach.
All right, if I tell you that a coach has 5 double-digit winning seasons, and has only 1 losing season in his, what am I going for, 5, 8, 13 years. So he has been a head coach in college for 13 years. Now, I'm not counting the Raiders there. 13 years. This is his 13th year, so we'll say 12 years. 12 years he's done this. He has 5 double-digit winning seasons, and in 12 years, he has only 1 losing season. He does have another 5-5 in the COVID year with Mississippi.
I would say sign me up. And then I would do a deeper dive into that, and I would say, but 2 of those years were at Florida Atlantic.
True.
And why was he there? And one of those losing seasons was also at Florida Atlantic.
Exactly, yeah.
So what was going on with that, Lane? So it's like, yeah, I want a dude that wins a lot of games. He does, but he inexplicably loses games, and he has never won a big game.
99 in college, 99-50 is his overall record at Mississippi. At Mississippi, he's 38-16, 20-14 in SEC play. Again, one of that does count the COVID year, and that is up to date as of right now with the 4-1 start for Mississippi. He's an interesting guy, and again, I think he's polarizing. It's also interesting that most schools, Auburn, Florida now, some others are like, if our job opens, we want that guy. Bring him in here.
Not if our job opens. If we have to push somebody off the boat.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we will open our job for him. We want him. And also, Lane's flirted with these other schools too. I mean, we got.
He loves his name out there.
He likes having his name in the conversation, and I'm not sure how close he wasn't to taking the Auburn job when it was open for Hugh Freeze.
803-404-6100, how you can weigh in if you want to on Lane Kiffin. We'll continue down his path a little bit here and let you hear a little bit from him as well. You're listening to Bill Gunner, Preston Thorne, and Jen Jensen. It's the early game. Bill Gunner for Love Chevrolet, I-26 in Harbison, between Lowe's and Frankie's Fun Park, where as we start the month of October, they are ready to continue rolling out their incredible deals. That's right. At Love Chevrolet, the deals never stop. We just go from month to month to month. So whatever you're looking for, whether it's a car, truck, or SUV, you're going to find amazing savings, and you're going to find a selection that is absolutely second to none. 14 acres of brand new Chevys from which you can choose with. And again, so many different deals, but they've also always got the $1,000 low price guarantee, which means you can shop other dealerships, take their deal back to the folks at Love Chevrolet, and they will top it. And I tell you what, when you go visit Love Chevrolet, you're going to run into a sales staff that is absolutely second to none. They want to make sure you find the exact vehicle you're looking for. So get out to Love Chevrolet or visit them on the web, lovechevy.com. Get there today, and together, let's drive.
I-26, it appears that it's I-26 westbound at Airport Boulevard, exit 113, that there is a slowdown due to an accident. So start to hit the brakes a little bit before that part or that exchange. So again, that's I-26 eastbound at Airport Boulevard. I'm sorry, I-26 westbound at Airport Boulevard is where that accident is. If you see something different, please call and let us know. I-26 eastbound at I-20 malfunction junction, slowing things down a bit there as well. But aside from that, weather should be decent. Shouldn't be causing too many slowdowns. Cloudy, 83 today, 84 tomorrow, 85 on Thursday. Pretty much what we're going to see through the weekend. 68 right now on the early game.
Reminder, the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest is back. If South Carolina scores a special teams touchdown this weekend against Mississippi, someone will pocket $500. That's right. Just go to 1075thegame.com and register today. You don't have to just be listening on 1075 The Game. You can just go to our website. You can be in Florence, Myrtle Beach. You can be in Charleston, wherever you're at, and you can go. All you need to do is register, 1075thegame.com. And if there is a special teams score this weekend from South Carolina, guess what? You win $500. So again, just go to 1075thegame.com and get registered.
And you only
today.
have to register once. We did have somebody ask a question, do I need to register every week? Nope. Once you register, you are good to go.
That is absolutely correct. 803-404-6100 is how you can weigh in, to which Neil does. And Neil says, Lane Kiffin is the guy at work who everyone likes and gets along with, but never really does his share of the work, but is always getting the same amount of credit as everyone else. You just kind of overlook his work performance because he makes the office a little more fun to be in. A moment later, Neil texts us back in. I just realized I may have been describing Bill. Thank you, Neil.
I will also add, there's value to that guy. There's value to that guy in the office or gal, right? There's value to them. So, yes, that's a good description.
I do think coaches, I think when Lane was first at Tennessee, coaches genuinely disliked him. Like, he was the annoying brat that was born on third base and didn't particularly do well with the Raiders, but then somehow fell into a very good job at Tennessee and was annoying. And now it's kind of like, and I think it was Kirby Smart last year at SEC Media Days. I think it was Kirby that said they're all in a big group text. There's a bunch of SEC coaches that are in a group text, and I think we joked about that, about who's not in the group text. And they said Lane will just put something in there that's kind of ridiculous and funny, making fun of somebody else. And I honestly think, kind of like when Lane tweeted out some stuff about South Carolina, I believe it was back in the winter. I believe it was back in the winter or the spring, that most people were just like, or Shane Beamer or somebody, or just like, yeah, that's Lane being Lane. Yeah, and just laugh about it and be like, yeah, that's the little brother just checking in on us, saying hi.
I can get it. I can definitely see Lane being maybe somebody you might mute in the group chat, or somebody that's like, oh boy, here we go. Yeah. And he just wants to start something. It's been quiet for a while. And he just drops something in there. Like, hey guys, have you seen this? It's like, oh boy.
All the eye roll emojis, Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that. But obviously he's still part of the group. And again, you still go back. Just starting his college career in 2009. Previously, 2 years before that, he's with the Raiders. So this is back to 2007. So he's somebody who's been in the cultural conversation of college sports and sports in general for a very long time.
He also really understands the social media. I'm just looking at this because what other coach on Saturday or Friday night and then Saturday is tweeting about Alabama, who has nothing to do with his team? Chris Lowe with ESPN put out on Friday night a tweet about looks like a bar there in Tuscaloosa, calling it a pretty festive night. And then Lane Kiffin responds. Actually, Chris Lowe says, "Big game tomorrow," with a question mark. Wonder who's playing. And Lane responds, "Who's playing?" Referring to he doesn't know who's playing. Then during his ESPN interview prior to the Kentucky game, maybe he was a little too worried about who was going to win the Alabama-Georgia game because he's picking Alabama to beat Georgia, and then he's tweeting at Alabama football. And this is what Lane does. Like, he gets it, and you can just scroll through his tweets, and he's having a good time of, like, cutting up with people and promoting his program and kind of getting involved here. And so that's the thing about him, too, is that, again, he kind of understands exactly how to handle media and how to do a few other things on there that kind of poke fun at people.
So many episodes of his career, because what you said, it just made me remember that run at Alabama when Saban brought him in and he brought him in to run the new offense, and Saban was annoyed the whole time and he had to look down at him even though he was calling all those great plays. I forgot that Saban basically had enough before the national championship. Was like, you know what, Lane, go home. We
got Sark.
Yeah, we're not doing this anymore. It's enough.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
He didn't leave him. One of the texters waited and said he left him on the tarmac. He didn't get left at the tarmac. I think he just – I think what it was.
Oh, that was at USC.
That was at Southern Cal where he got fired on the tarmac. He did get left. Like, the bus is pulling off and Lane's holding his play sheet when they've got back to Los Angeles, and the bus is pulling off in another direction, and he's just sitting there. But at Alabama, I think what it was is he said he would take the Florida Atlantic job, and Saban was like, all right, just take it now. We don't even worry about bowl prep. We got it. We're fine. This is my chance to get you out of the house, son. Go ahead. Go to Florida Atlantic.
It's definitely something along those lines. And I forgot about that whole incident. Again, how many years ago was that? That was a long time ago in the evolution. Then you have the famous Owls Up pick that he took at Florida Atlantic, which is iconic. You just see Lane bloated, not wanting to be there, just throws the Owls up in the picture. I mean, so many moments from this dude, and he's still relatively young.
There's also an element here of his personal life that I think is involved, and having watched him with his now ex-wife, the rumors of whatever Joey Freshwater were for him, which, again, I don't know if that ever got confirmed or how that all exactly went down. But he's an interesting guy. 803-404-6100. Let's go out to the phone lines. Rob wants to weigh in this morning. Gamecock Rob, how you doing? What's on your mind?
Yeah, I just wanted to get in with this Kiffin talk. Remember when was it Alshon Jeffrey? They said he would be flipping burgers if he came to South Carolina.
Pumping gas. Yeah.
Pumping gas. Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, sure was. But as far as the annoying person that you have in, like, The Office, he's the guy who thinks he's funny all the time and is always telling jokes, and everybody's rolling their eyes.
Okay. Thank you for the phone call, Rob. Yeah, we could play that game for a while. Lane. Who is Lane Kiffin? Who is Lane Kiffin in your office? Yeah, don't call in and give us the name of somebody in your office and embarrass them. Just tell us what guy is Lane Kiffin in your office. 803-404-6100. We'll get into that a little bit, and it appears Mr. Thorne, Professor Thorne here, has a rant you're ready to go on. Oh, he's firing up the shoulders and the arms. We'll let you hear Preston Thorne with a rant when we come back. It is the early game. A reminder, coverage for South Carolina, Mississippi will start 10:30 a.m. on Saturday, sponsored by the Lexington Medical Ortho from the party lot at Sound and Images. We'll have our pregame from starting at 10:30, and then the network pregame taking over at 12:30, leading up to kickoff at 3:30. That will be how we cover the game on Saturday. Saturday, reserved for games, Preston Thorne, not practices.
Saturday, reserved for games, not practices, according to the coach, my coach, Paul Maneri. It should be no secret if you listen to this show that I like listening to coaching press conferences. I'm not sure when I discovered this, but I just feel like you can find out some things. And we had a chance, I think we all at the same time, if I'm not mistaken, we all got a chance to see Coach Maneri in person at the radio brunching over the summer the first time. Remember, Jenny had on a beautiful blazer, hair was slicked back.
He was so dapper.
Nice, dapper fella.
Yeah, that Miami vibe.
Definitely.
Once I learned that he was from Miami, you could just look at me and be like, yeah.
Definitely had a vibe to him. There was definitely, as the kids would say, the aura was strong around him. And so I watched this press conference yesterday, and very interesting. If you're obviously you're here, so you're probably in the Gamecock baseball. If you want to get some more insight to him and his program, I would advise you to go check it out because he does give some pretty decent insight into what his plans are for the spring. But he brought up this one moment, and he talked about the team's schedule for the fall as far as practice is concerned. He laid out all the things that they'll be doing, but he said one thing, and he made it clear and apparent that there's some things that he will not do and that he's never done. And I want everybody to hear this. Jen, can we roll the clip, please?
I haven't practiced on a Saturday my entire coaching career, and that was by design because I'm a big believer in the student athletes having the experience of being a student. And what is Saturday afternoons in the fall for? Football, right? And I want them to go have fun and be with their friends and just enjoy it. And I've been this way all the way back to the Air Force Academy at Notre Dame, at LSU, and I'll do the same here. I don't believe in practicing fall baseball on Saturday. I believe in them being college kids and having a good time.
That's World Series head coach, legendary, veteran, NCAA tournament appearing champion, Paul Maneri, saying that he doesn't practice on Saturdays in the fall. And so my question is, why are you practicing on Saturday in the falls? And this is Preston Thorne only. This is not Bill Gunner. This is not Gingis. This is not 107.5 The Game. This is just me. But why are you, Mr. Fall Ball coach of the 8 years under coach, why are you practicing in the fall? Why are you, soccer team, having practice in the fall when this is not in season? What are we doing? I took this opportunity to rant very quickly and say there's no need, if your sport is not in season, for you to be practicing. That includes fall ball, that includes football, that includes baseball, basketball, whatever sport you want to count. If you're not in season, there's no reason to have weekend practices.
Okay, are you just to clarify, are you going with just practices or?
I'm saying I'm going with the whole gambit.
Okay.
We're not in season. We don't need to be doing it. This is Paul Maneri, World Series winning.
And it's worked pretty well for him, hasn't it?
And it's done pretty well for him. And can you play it one more time just to say he has never, and we can stop it. I just want to understand why, if it's good enough for Paul, why is it not good enough for you?
I haven't practiced on a Saturday my entire coaching career.
That's all I want to say.
Okay.
It's good enough for Paul. It should be good enough for you. And you being whoever is coaching softball out there, or if you're coaching fall baseball, or if you're coaching any sport that's not in season, we do not need to be practicing at extra times.
There is such a thing as sports life balance.
That's correct.
I'm not all opposed to what you're saying at all.
We don't need to be doing this.
Oh boy.
Come at me.
If it's off season, absolutely.
If we're in the off season,
if you're playing fall ball, then yeah, you're going to probably have practices. But still,
if you're playing baseball in the spring, the real season, yes, you should practice. No problem. This is fall baseball. It's not a real thing. It's not a real thing. Fall baseball is not a real thing. Just like sports in any other off seasons. Not a real thing. AAU basketball all year, not a real thing. There's a basketball season. That's why we have seasons. Football in the summer, 7-on-7s, not a real thing. So if you're practicing if you're playing sports in the season that's not designated as yours, we don't need to be practicing on Saturdays, and especially not on Sundays. I got to say this. My child, 5 years old, they were talking about having a soccer game on a Sunday. Are you crazy? No.
Well, wait a minute. Technically, in the fall?
Yes.
Technically, you're in season.
There's absolutely zero chance she was showing up to that game because she is 4 years old and they're going to do nothing but pick daisies out of the flowers.
Okay. Fine
Nothing
with that. I'm just a little against the grain there. It is soccer season.
Let me be clear. Not doing it. So I want to say this again. And I want to give every parent out there listening, you have the right not to go. You don't have to do this. You do not have to show up to all of these practices, especially in a season that's not a real thing. That's it. I appreciate you, Paul Maneri, for saying this. I wish some more people would listen. I think the Gamecocks are going to be fine this year, even when they don't practice on Saturdays.
Two things. Number one, my man coached at LSU. I think he got into number one, he's been at, I should say, since 95, he's been at two schools that value football greatly.
Mm-hmm.
It's very well could have been a situation, and he was at Air Force prior to Notre Dame, and Air Force does take their football rather seriously, too. You might have had a mandate from the athletic director. No,
it's very possible.
You don't practice. At Notre Dame, Saturdays are for football. You don't get to practice. At LSU, they probably did tell him that, even though LSU's baseball obviously is widely regarded as one of the best programs, the true blue bloods, all that, so forth and so on. Two, my man might be a big-time football fan. He wants his Saturday. He's not worried about his players. He wants his Saturdays for college game day.
Guess what? When you're the boss, you get to make the hours.
You do. And then three on that, don't lose. Because we saw what happened when Steve Spurrier's coaches started saying, yeah, we don't work quite as hard as others around here. It didn't wrap up well.
All I'm saying is you don't have to do it. It's not necessary.
J.C. Shurburtt, hour 2 on the way.
They do say perfection is a journey, and our journey to update a bathroom led us to Carolina Stone Craftsman just outside Columbia in Chapin. We ended up replacing the bathroom cabinet along with other things in the renovation. And of course, hey, we needed a countertop, and we were recommended to go to Carolina Stone Craftsman. And I got to tell you, we were impressed. Felt at home right away, toured their showroom, which is fabulous. Learned a whole bunch about the marble and quartz and granite that they have available. Highest craftsmanship, family values there. We just felt very at home, and the professional results showed for themselves. There was so much to choose from. They were honestly very helpful in helping us figure out what would work best for us. Once the installation was complete, they cleaned up. It was a great process from start to finish. If you're in the market for countertops or for your kitchen or bath, I encourage you to reach out to Carolina Stone Craftsman and be sure to tell them Jen Jensen sent you. Just beyond Columbia in Chapin and beyond your expectations, it's carolinastonecraftsman.com. I-26 westbound right there at Airport Boulevard. We do have a report of an accident there. Cars slowing down and starting to back up about a half mile or so. So be careful approaching that area. Also, I-26 eastbound there at I-20, an accident as well. As far as your forecast goes, it's going to be dry for several days, and low to mid-80s is where we are. 83 today, 84 tomorrow. Then we hit 85 on Thursday, back up to 85 again for Saturday. Great day for tailgating, it appears. Right now, 68 and 107.5 The Game.
We will circle back to that conversation probably maybe when things slow down a little bit, because Preston and I off air, I was laying down some rules that I have for weekend practices and games. And I even went as far as to say, look, I kind of like the weekend practices a little bit like within time limits, because, man, if you practice Monday through like just anytime Monday through Thursday, you got I assume most of you, got to get up, go to work, then you got to deal with something, then you got to come home, then you got to get a kid to practice, then you got to get dinner ready, and guess what? You got to do it all again the next day. We'll circle back, write that one down for kind of a parents' discussion at some point later on during this program, not today, but that might be worth having a little, a group think tank type chat.
Let's just all come to some guidelines that we can all work with and around for the betterment of us all. There's no need for us to be doing all of this.
I'll also say, and I told Preston this a minute ago, I've coached my son for so long that I'm trying not to do it anymore. I'm getting out of it. He's 12. I feel like it's time to hand him off to either his school coaches. He'll play school ball, basketball this coming season. It's time to hand him off.
My last point. It'll be better for you. It'll be better for your kid. They don't want you standing there watching them at practice every day.
No.
And it'll be better for the coaches. All purposes are drop them off with somebody you trust and get out the way.
Yep. That's I'm coming around to that I don't have to coach anymore. I don't have to come up with a coaching plan for that day. So yeah, we'll circle back to that, because that is there's times we need to have like parental discussions with everybody and get different thoughts and opinions, and that may have to be one. 803-404-6100 is how you can weigh in if you hear something this hour that you want to weigh in on. Real quick, and JC, we'll get your opinion on this. Practicing in the offseason with Kenny says, I agree. No reason to play year-round sports. There is a huge correlation between baseball and elbow injuries for pitchers. Tommy John surgery by 15-year-olds should not be the new norm. Richard agreeing. That's my thing. You have all week, not killing my weekends. Another texter weighs in and says, preach, Preston. And then Teddy D says, there's no off season for golf, so I play most Saturdays. There you go. JC, welcome in on a bright and early Tuesday morning. Hope you're doing well. Preston wrapped up the previous hour ranting against just more little kids practices on the weekend in the off season, if you will.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, don't get me started on this, because I'm in another state. I mean, high school football folks, they don't respect college football Saturdays. They play JV, freshmen, even some varsity. They'll send the 11th graders over to have like a glorified scrimmage at 9, 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. They just don't care. God forbid they do anything when the Bears are playing, but they don't. I guess most Big Ten games now are on Friday night anyway, so nobody cares about anything sacred in the great state of Illinois. But it makes me miss home. But like when I grew up, JV was on Thursday. Freshmen sometimes, if you had a C team, they played at 4:30 on Thursday, and then the JV game. and they did varsity Friday night. I mean, I don't understand all this. Let's mess with everybody Saturday, but that's just me.
That's okay. We'll bring you back in for that parental discussion.
It's me too, JC. I'm with you, brother.
Yeah, we'll come back in. That'll be further into the off season when we're not discussing games such as this coming Saturday. But first, before we get into looking into Ole Miss, let's get your take here as we wrap up the month of September. Your big picture college football take, all the way from the disaster that is Florida State, and we now know there'll be a different quarterback for them this week, all the way up to what you've seen maybe and what you like from Colorado, and then even what you thought about Alabama and Georgia this past weekend. Your big picture football take.
My big picture is don't assume anything. Assume nothing. I mean, that's the theme for this year. I mean, you have a lot of assuming. You had it all off season. Until someone out there that's smart ends up deciding that they're going to evaluate the transfer portal properly and come up with some kind of mechanism or rating to put some value on these portal classes coming and going and not just look at numbers or whatever, it's going to be chaotic like this. I think that Florida State, for example, well, guess what? Those guys they brought in weren't very good. Even if they came from Georgia and Bama, they weren't playing there. I mean, they weren't doing much. And so, they got a bad batch of portal guys. A lot like Arkansas basketball last year, and we saw what happened to Eric Musselman. He just left. So, that's the deal there. Lots of assumptions based on things like one game. In the case of Clemson, it's just, Kentucky, who saw that coming? It's one of those things where don't assume anything week to week because that's going to be foolish. I mean, Auburn, for the life of me, and I was almost right. I was like, Auburn will probably win this one because Oklahoma can't score. Wow. And then lo and behold, as Brent Venables called it, the Sooner magic happened, and there you go. So there's just a lot of attachment in the media nationally to brand and to things that really don't matter. And that's why when you look at the 24/7 Sports SEC poll this week, Florida, Auburn, and then Mississippi State, three programs that have been good in the past, are at the bottom of the league. And I think Mississippi State was ticked low, but Florida and Auburn were not. So people were thinking Florida's going to win 8 games. I thought they were crazy. But the assumptions are going to really cost some people some money if they are going to place gambling's legal and make some people look foolish. I think that's my big picture take. Don't assume anything. I mean, you had people talking about how Georgia was going to run Bama by 2 touchdowns just because they're Georgia now and they're the new Bama. Well, they're not. They're good, but Georgia, the Bama thing happened over the course of 17 years. That's a long time. Georgia's not there yet, and obviously the Tide won the game, and it looked like a blowout for a while. So we'll see what happens moving forward, but that's my big picture through 5 weeks. Don't assume anything.
Let me ask you, we had this conversation yesterday with your buddy Jamie Bradford, and we were debating. Preston initially said at the beginning of the year he wanted to wait 3 weeks before he made any judgments on teams. Then Preston told me to put words in your mouth, but that it would take about 3 weeks to know who a team is. I felt like in yesterday's discussion with Jamie Bradford, Preston, you changed your opinion of that a little bit. Explain that to JC, and then JC, how long do you think it takes to figure out who a team is now in college football because of the transfer portal?
I've been adamant. I guess I've been going on the old thing about let's see 3 weeks worth of games. Let's see what they look like against a good team, a team that's better than them, a team that they're supposed to beat, and then we can figure out who a team is. But Jamie proposed that maybe 6 weeks or half a season and actually seeing who the team is maybe a more accurate measuring stick. And I think I'm going along those lines, and it builds off of what you're just saying because – all of your assumptions coming into the season don't really count for much. And so I'm wondering, when do you feel is an appropriate time that we can start making a judgment on a team during the season?
Man, with the amount of November and October upsets. But see, to your point, Preston, so when is it an upset? You know, I mean, so for example, Ole Miss losing to Kentucky. Everybody's like massive upset, and I mean, it surprised me. I'll be honest. But what if Ole Miss comes in, Carolina beats them? I know we'll talk about that in a second. I don't know if that's like a layup for sure. And then they go to LSU and lose, and they're 0-3 in the SEC to start. Well, then they were just overrated. It wasn't really an upset, right? So I think in terms of things like that, we know what an upset is and what isn't probably by about mid-October. But with the way the schedules are too, I mean, again, Ole Miss, you know, played Dutch Fork and Landrum and James Island, and you know, a couple Skeeza teams thrown in there. I mean, they didn't really play anybody, and then boom, they get hit in the face with a sledgehammer last weekend. You know, whereas other schools have gone and played challenging schedules and things like that and had tough games. I think Ole Miss is sort of an outlier, but yeah, you know, you sort of got to look at it. I think by so the 12th of October, not this weekend but the next, is a big showdown Saturday. I mean, there's just a ton of games that, you know, we're going to find out about these teams. And so I think maybe mid-October you have a good gauge. I mean, I think you got a pretty good idea now, but it's not you know, it's still not something you can assume anything on. I mean, it's and I think the portal has something to do with it. And then all this conference realignment, I mean, no, you know, Southern Cal, you know, having to go turn around and go to Minnesota this weekend. And I mean, how's that going to affect them? I mean, you know, having to go back to the Midwest multiple times. You had Washington going across the country, you know, that kind of thing too is like, you know, you don't know, you know, when everybody was just playing their neighbors, you know, you didn't have to worry about it. But now travel plays a factor. So there's all these new factors and stuff. And I think this year in particular, mid-October, that October 12th date, we're going to sit there and go, all right, here's how this really shakes out right now.
803-404-6100. We'll get into that Mississippi stuff, and also we'll ask JC's opinion. We talked a lot about Lane Kiffin, JC. You've seen Lane Kiffin from all angles in your time with ESPN and 24/7 Sports. We'll get into Lane Kiffin and what you think about his career, the way he is, just the way he was in 2009 at Tennessee, the way he is now in 2024. He's actually had a little bit of history with South Carolina throughout his time, as we all know. We'll talk about that and also get into the Ole Miss game here. JC Shurburtt joining us, as he always does, on a Tuesday morning. You're listening to the early game. The month of October is here. I mean, scary movies on television. One of the things you don't want to see is a movie about your carpet or you trying to clean it after your pet just left a spot or one of your children just spilled a drink on your carpet. That is terrifying. What you need to do instead of cleaning it, you need to call Zerorez Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning. Let the professionals into your home, and they'll make it insanely clean with their patented ZR water technology. And right now, how about this? With the month of October, you can take advantage of their spooktacular savings. You heard that right, spooktacular savings, and get 3 rooms of carpet clean for $129 when you mention me, Bill Gunner, at 107.5 The Game. You can easily schedule online, ZerorezColumbia.com, or you can give them a phone call, 803-262-4020. Again, mention me, Bill Gunner, at 107.5 The Game, and take advantage of the savings right now. Get 3 rooms of carpet clean for $129. Zerorez, spell it backwards or forwards, is the right way to clean.
Still a bit of a slowdown there in Malfunction Junction, I-26 eastbound there at I-20. I-26 westbound at Airport Boulevard seems to be getting taken care of, so not impacting traffic flow too much. Aside from that, no other reports of slowdowns, and we're looking for a high today of 83. Going to be 84 tomorrow, 85. Going to kind of keep this pattern really through the weekend, anywhere between, low to mid 80s. Currently 68 on 107.5 The Game.
Up and Adam, 7:18 here on your Tuesday morning. Where, again, a reminder, we'll have the Shane Beamer press conference coming up 1 o'clock today, and we will learn a lot more about the injury situation for South Carolina. We'll at least get words on it. I don't know if we'll learn anything about what the extent of the injuries are. And quite honestly, Preston, Tuesday is still probably a little early to really know who's available and who isn't available when coming off an ankle injury.
During a regular week, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I will say we're coming off a bye week, so we probably should have a little bit more information. But you're right. Tuesday is still – you still got some time.
But make sure you tune into that today. You can hear from Shane Beamer coming up 1 o'clock today. That's on 107.5 The Game here in Columbia, 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. JC joining us here as he does. JC Shurburtt, thebigspur.com, joining us as he does each and every week. And JC, you and I have traveled a good bit when we did recruiting both for ESPN and for 24/7 Sports, and it never got more entertaining than when Lane Kiffin was at Tennessee getting involved, especially with Alshon Jeffrey. You look at this, I don't know if we ever answered the question, by the way, back in hour number one. Lane Kiffin's 49 years of age. So he's not over 50. It only feels like he's been around college football for the majority of our lifetime. But, JC, how do you sum up, how do you view Lane Kiffin's run through college football from Tennessee to Southern Cal to working with Nick Saban to what he's doing now?
Well, I think it's always been known that Lane Kiffin's a good coach. He got the Raiders job when he was really young. And then Tennessee hired him after the Raiders debacle, and 1 year there. Him leaving after 1 year after he replaced Philip Fulmer really, Bill, caused Tennessee to kind of go into a spiral for a long time until now, because if you remember that staff he had, guys like Gamecock fans will be familiar with. David Reeves was on that staff. Lance Thompson was on that staff. Ed Orgeron, Coach O was on that staff recruiting for Lane. And that's a good Coach O, isn't it? And then all of a sudden he just leaves and goes to Southern Cal, and Derek Dooley comes in, and, the rest is history. I thought at Southern Cal he got a bad deal. They were on probation. He had 60 players. They won, just didn't win big enough. He replaced the guy, Pete Carroll, and so he got fired on the tarmac. And I don't think kind of some of his – I don't want to say behavior. That's a real serious word, or antics or anything like that, but like his personality probably didn't do him any favors. He comes across sometimes as aloof and arrogant and things like that. It's probably because, he's got that California accent. He's kind of, he'll deadpan. He won't smile when he jokes around. And people like that sometimes can, eat your face off sometimes. It'll just destroy you. You just want to punch him. So I don't think it helped, but he rehabbed everything at Alabama. Went to FAU, did a good job there and did a bad job there. He won double-digit games. So then 1 year he went 2-10. Ole Miss hires him. He did a fantastic job with that program, really kind of taking, you had the Matt Luke era there in the middle, but taking what Hugh Freeze kind of did and continuing it, and then taking advantage of the transfer portal. So, yeah, Alshon Jeffrey recruitment was epic because of the gas pumping comment. And Shane Beamer was actually the Gamecocks' lead recruiter for Alshon. So they went head-to-head there. But he wasn't the most favored coach around South Carolina at the time, and probably still isn't. I mean, he's 2-0 against the Gamecocks. The one game at Tennessee, and then he coached against Will Muschamp in Will's last game, that 59-42 game down there, which was wild. But I think he's a really good football coach. He's got a plan to win at Ole Miss. Last week notwithstanding, he's done a really good job there. And I understand why programs like Florida have him at the top of the list. I mean, he's kind of a fit at a school like Florida. So we'll see what happens in the off season. But certainly he's turned it around and kind of gotten the stink off, so to speak, of some of those situations that he got into when he was younger. And I don't know if you guys have read Chris Lowe's article on him on ESPN. I think it was Chris Lowe, just how he's changed his life. He's quit drinking, kind of in the frat boy, party boy, Joey Freshwater moniker that he got way back in the day. And that, there's something to be said for people like that take ownership of their lives and commit to family. That's why he didn't take Auburn, because he wanted to stay in Ole Miss because of his daughters. And I respect people like that. I think that's you don't have to live with who you've been your whole life. You can always change. There's always tomorrow, hopefully. And so I respect him for that.
I think those are all fair points. And as much as we talk about Lane, you never hear me say there's no complaints from his players about him as a coach. You don't hear him doing anything, quote unquote, unethical off the field. So he's playing within the rules. He just has a character and he just has a personality, something that unfortunately we need more of, I think, in college football. I like having people that we can point to and have conversations about this because, quite honestly, there's not many coaches that we could have this conversation with. A majority of the coaches in college football are pretty bland right now. So it's cool to have this conversation. And, really quickly, that Muschamp game, and for those that don't remember, that is the clipboard game.
Yes.
Where the clipboard goes up in there.
Yeah. He just threw it up in there. Yeah. There were 4 NFL players in that secondary for Carolina. They looked like they Keystone Cops the whole night. Now, in fairness, nobody played defense in 2020 at all. But they had some guys. Hopefully, they don't have those guys running wide open.
Four NFL players and Shedeur Sanders. I mean,
Shiloh.
Shiloh. Yeah, Shiloh's back there too. But I'll say this, Preston. You're right about college football needing Lane Kiffin. I mean, we lost Mike Leach tragically. Steve Spurrier's retired. Just around the SEC, Lane, Eli Drinkwitz to a certain extent. Even Shane Beamer is a bit polarizing if you look at the comments that other fans make about him. So, I think personality goes a long way. I think it helps you recruit. I think kids gravitate towards folks that they're, aren't real stuffy. Then again, I think that you look at some of the successful programs. I don't know that Kalen DeBoer and Kirby Smart and Steve Sarkisian are winning any stand-up comedy competitions anytime soon, but they're at Texas, Bama, and Georgia. So, I think for some schools, that personality is needed. And really, back to the Florida thing, if you look at the Florida Gators, big personalities have won there. So I think, and they're the only ones that have. So I think that's probably why the talk is pretty high, heavy that, he may be top of the list to replace Billy Napier, who, although I like Billy a lot and think he's a good man and a good coach, that guy's not winning any personality contest anytime soon.
No, Billy Napier's not winning a personality.
No, Billy's just not. He's not a press conference guy. I mean, you don't have to be, but
you got to win.
Florida, I think you do.
Yeah, you got to win. You got to win. 803-404-6100. I'm going to ask you to. We'll look ahead to this game this weekend. Is there a difference between a gratifying / satisfying win and a big win? because I do wonder about this weekend with some of the storylines that will be played out. One of them is what we just talked about, beating Lane Kiffin. Even if he's got a bad team, it feels like a satisfying win. And then, of course, there's a certain player for Mississippi that would be, I guess, satisfying, as opposed to, is it a big win? We'll discuss that for a minute and look at this game this weekend. You're listening to Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jen Jensen, joined as always on a Tuesday morning by J.C. Shurburtt. It's the early game. Bill Gunner for Old Timey Meat Market, where we're on a Tuesday, so you got a day or two to start really planning out that tailgate food this weekend. But I tell you where it all starts, with a trip to Old Timey Meat Market. Whether it's the South Congaree store, St. Andrews Road in Irma, or the Lexington store, you need to get by there and check out their incredible selection of hand-cut meats. That's right. Whether it is steaks, whether it is the Italian chicken skewers, whether it is salmon, whether it is pork chops, whatever you're looking for, Old Timey Meat Market has you taken care of. And the reason I love them is because they make it like a non-grocery store experience. You go in, they're going to know your name. They're going to know what you like already. If they've got something they prefer, they're going to talk to you about it and tell you about it. They treat you like a member of the family, not a customer, but a member of the family. So visit one of the 3 locations today. Again, the Lexington store, where you'll see me, the St. Andrews Road store in Irma, or the South Congaree store. Stop by. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
Earlier accidents have been cleared. Good news there. There is reports of some patchy dense fog kind of on the northeast side of town. So be a little bit aware of that until the sun comes out and gets that all burned off. 83 for the high today, 84 tomorrow. And then we stay anywhere between about 83 and 85 throughout the weekend. So going to be pretty nice. Great football weather. Right now, though, it's a little bit overcast. Again, have some patchy dense fog out there. 67 on 107.5 The Game.
Yeah, very different players types than last week, polar opposite, and then very different schemes too. Kentucky ultra sound, keep the ball in front of you, really big bodies. Stoops built that defense that way, and then I think the addition of the Georgia linebacker was huge for them from a mentality and leadership standpoint. And saw what they did to us, saw what they did to Georgia. These guys are built differently. They're more built on speed and twitch, so both present problems.
That was Lane Kiffin yesterday talking about South Carolina and the difference between the defensive line for the Gamecocks versus the defensive line that they faced last week. They gave them a lot of problems, and Lane Kiffin being very honest there. Bob this morning, or Robert Rozier, not happy with him weighing in. Quit making excuses for that guy. Totally no respect for other people. And then he just, in case he wasn't angry enough, says Lane is awful as a human being. Lane's a good dude. He's legitimately, we just got to, no need to be upset about it. But you do want to beat him, and that's Preston and JC. That's where I say, is this a huge victory for the program, or is it a satisfying victory for the fans? And they can be one and the same.
Well, this goes back to, I'm really intrigued with JC's concept of what is an upset now.
That's okay.
Because we painted this game as being a big game or because a high-ranked team was coming into town. But maybe we never really knew how good this team is. So maybe it won't necessarily be a big win. Maybe it might slide into a win like maybe we should get. But it is going to be satisfying to beat Lane because he is annoying. He's not awful, but he is annoying.
That makes it satisfying.
Right.
And you have Antoine Wells over there that would be satisfying.
To that.
JC, your thoughts on that and what the satisfaction level is in this game I don't want to say it's not a big win because you've got a chance to take down another top 15 team. And whether they're good or not is irrelevant because South Carolina really, under Steve Spurrier, jump-started their program, beating a team that should never have been number 4 in the country in Mississippi on a Thursday, or against Mississippi. It wasn't in. It was here at Williams-Brice. But that really jump-started. We know it was the birth of Sandstorm and everything, but that's really what jump-started the Steve Spurrier program. And what it was a victory over a team that really had no business being top 5. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Carolina's going to win the game first. I mean, that's the thing I said about assuming earlier. I mean, that Kentucky game does not tell you like how good Ole Miss can be. They have weapons. I mean, the guy Trey Harris, I think he's almost to 50 catches through 5 games. I mean, I stop him. And as Lane said, it's Kentucky's kind of a spider web team. They're sound. They don't gamble. They don't blitz a lot. They can get you into their spider web and beat you. Carolina did a good job against Kentucky not getting into the spider web because when Carolina would get down close, they'd score touchdowns. And Carolina's defense dominated the game. So that's the thing. As far as satisfaction goes, I think this. I think you always want to beat coaches that you haven't beaten, Eli Drinkwitz would be on that list. Right. Brent Venables will probably be on that list, although Carolina did have some wins over Clemson early in his tenure. Texas A&M in general, no matter who the coach is. But I also think if you're South Carolina, take the ranking and the hype about Ole Miss heading into this season out of it. There's about – in the 16-team SEC, there's about 6-7 programs that I'll call Carolina's peer programs, right? And that doesn't include Vandy. But they're programs like Arkansas, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, those types of teams that, Kentucky, that you want to beat. I mean, because there's no resource or tradition argument there, as to why you're not beating them. Missouri's in that conversation. It's like, so some schools like Georgia are set up in LSU and programs like that, set up better than South Carolina. Tennessee's got a lot more tradition than South Carolina. You look at those and you're like, well, historically, those programs are kind of in this category, but then there's a bunch that are in the other. And Ole Miss is one of them. South Carolina's won out of the last 4 in the series. Will Muschamp had a big win down there in 18, very exciting game. Spurrier was undefeated against them, but Lou Holtz was 0-3. I don't want to remind Preston of any bad memories. But those 2 losses in 03 and 04 were just tough. The 04 loss especially was tough to take. 03, there was a phantom safety call. Eli Manning was going up and down the field. The Gamecocks made a valiant comeback, lost by 3, 43-40. So Ole Miss is kind of a program that you look at and you go, well, South Carolina should be better than them. There's more people in the state of South Carolina. There's more talent in the state of South Carolina. Historically, Ole Miss was good in the 60s. And they've been pretty good under Freeze and Kiffin, but, the Gamecocks don't really take a back seat to them as far as resources and geographic footprint and all that good stuff. They've just been in the SEC longer. So I think that you always want to beat the teams that take everything else out of it, that are kind of your peer schools. I think that's important because then that kind of gives you a catapult to where you get into a game with Georgia or whoever, you can go win that one too.
All right, so going back to what Lane Kiffin said there in that thing, Preston and JC both, how do you compare? I'll start with you, Preston, as the defensive line guy. How do you compare what you've seen from Kentucky's defensive line and how they play against what South Carolina likes to do on the defensive line and the guys they have?
Yeah, I thought Lane was very accurate in that. But with Kentucky, you have like big number 0. He likes to take up 4 blockers by himself, just plug them in the middle, and you have to run around him. Whereas our guys, we're going to be bending around the edges, getting upfield, pass pro, stunts and fronts, and doing all kinds of maybe more exotic things. And that would probably lead to more boom or bust type of deals with Lane. Whereas if he catches us in a bad situation, he's able to dial something up and make something happen. But also, we're able to maybe neutralize some of the things that he does. So I think it's a favorable matchup.
JC, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it kind of scares me with this game because it is a different animal than Kentucky, and play callers, really good play callers, are they can catch you in situations, and this has happened around here before. It's just a style of defense, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's kind of an exciting boom or bust style. They like to send pressure. Sometimes they don't. I have a lot of questions about Ole Miss's offensive line after what I saw last week. I will say that. I didn't think they handled Kentucky's front well at all. Kentucky's very fundamentally sound. Kentucky was even down 2 corners in the game, and Ole Miss, Jackson Dart, they just could not get the ball to anybody but Harris and then the tight end zone. So, you kind of worry – if you're South Carolina, that game is an anomaly and that they're going to try to spread the ball around and find the open space and when there is some and go that way. I think Carolina probably on the second level is better than Kentucky, the safeties that they have and stuff like that. But coverage is not something that, you would say – Kilgore and Emenware and Smith are elite in coverage. They're not, they're not going to go out and win a bunch of one-on-one matchups against a lot of these guys they have in their receiving core, including Juice. So, that's going to be an interesting battle to see what Clayton White comes up with. And maybe if Carolina can, and you got to watch Jackson Dart out of the pocket too, because he can run a little bit. So if Carolina can keep him in the pocket and pressure him like they've done to just about every other quarterback they faced, including Nussmeier, that just with guts and, resolve, ended up having a good game against the Gamecocks. You got to make sure that you're stopping those guys and putting max pressure on their offense. The other part of it is this too. Ole Miss under Kiffin has not been good on the road. They have not beaten what I would call a good team on the road really in quite some time. So that's another factor. I don't know if it's communication or what, but they don't play historically. They haven't played as well on the road. They played one road game this year. That was at Wake Forest in front of dozens of people. So it's a different animal coming to Williams-Brice.
803-404-6100. I'll get to a few more of these. Richard asks a question that I think is legitimate, but also maybe premature, depending on what y'all have kind of said. And it's something that Preston and I like to do a little bit. Yes, we'll get to that. I'll ask JC and Preston when we come back. I'll read that text and we'll get to this. 803-404-6100. You're listening to the early game. Bill Gunner for the Ecton Law Firm, where you can call John Ecton and his team who are ready to help you with proven local solutions if you've been dealing with the IRS. If the IRS has been sending you some of those mean notices, if they've been trying to cause you stress and bother you or your business, it's time to call and get a free consultation. 803-771-9800. That's how you can call the Ecton Law Firm today. Whether you're here in Columbia, Florence, Myrtle Beach, wherever you're at, the Ecton Law Firm is ready to help you and your family with any business or personal tax issues. So don't wait another day. Time is of the essence. Call today. Line up that free consultation. 803-771-9800. You can take the first steps towards a worry-free life. Call the Ecton Law Firm today. 803-771-9800. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing. And as we move past the hurricane and the storms that have passed through, you might be discovering you've got a little bit of roof damage. If so, it's time to call the people who've been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry for nearly 30 years. That's Larry Leitner and the team at Mid-State Roofing. Whether it's a high-rise or a hospital, manufacturing or industrial, Mid-State Roofing designs and installs bonded systems with a protective guarantee that'll keep your operation dry and running long into the future. But more importantly, you might be in need of a maintenance contract right now. And Mid-State Roofing is ready to provide that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can give them a phone call, 803-356-1919. Again, that's 803-356-1919. Contact Mid-State Roofing today. Get in touch with them. Get that maintenance contract taken care of. You can also visit them on the web for more information, midstateroofing.com. If you've got a leak, let Mid-State Roofing take a peek.
Yeah, I think they were really disappointed. I think they were really upset, really hurt. And I told them today that's a good thing, you know, for guys that in the room that didn't and just went on with their day and, you know, it didn't really hurt. That'll show you. The more you're invested, the more you put in something, you're going to feel different afterwards than somebody that isn't invested and doesn't put all their heart into it. So I think it was a good thing that they struggled so much the last 2 days.
That was Lane Kiffin yesterday talking about his team recovering from the Kentucky loss, much like South Carolina had to recover from the LSU loss and then turn around and get ready for Akron. A little bit different animal there. And I'm going to ask JC and Preston about that in just a second, but do want to remind you there are just a few craft beer cards left, and you can go and purchase one. Just $79 for a $360 value. 12 different craft beer locations. You can spend $30 at each brewery. Go to 1075thegame.com, click on Sweet Deals, and purchase your craft beer card today. Richard weighs in, and follow the logic. JC and Preston, I'll start with you. Richard says, to me, this is our biggest game of the year. We don't have a chance versus Alabama. Oklahoma and Texas A&M are more on our level. This is a game. You're going to have another good group of recruits, a certain wide receiver out of Rock Hill who's committed to a certain team in the ACC that is 1-4 and likely to get pounded again this weekend. There's a lot going on with this game that can, again, change your season. I might be with Richard on this is our biggest game of the season until next week. He doesn't say that, but I'll add his words. And Jay, and I want you two to take this into account. Ole Miss is fighting for their playoff lives. Is this the biggest game of the season for Mississippi? Preston?
You know I love this conversation.
Yeah, I do.
This is right in my wheelhouse right here. I want to take it to escalate it. Is this the biggest game of Lane Kiffin's career?
JC? Yeah.
I don't know. That Georgia game last year, they'd have won that one. You know, it may have put them in a little better shape. I don't know. I think it's the biggest game of Ole Miss's season. No, I'll give everybody that. Because if you lose this one, you got to turn around and go to Baton Rouge, I think at night the next weekend. And LSU is getting better on defense. They held South Alabama to 10 the other night, and they've got they're much better coached on defense at LSU than last year. And going down there at night when you're Ole Miss, I mean, it's just that's tough. I mean, you can ask South Carolina how hard that is back in 2012 when they had to go to LSU and play, I think, an 8-win team, and they lost. But if you don't get this one, if you're Ole Miss, you know, then the challenges that are in front of you, Georgia, LSU, teams like that, you know, that's gonna change the expectation. I think if you lose this game, if you're Ole Miss, and that's what's. I mean, it's a little bit scary because you know Nick Saban said on game day last week, it was very intelligent. He said, playing well and winning is the worst because guys won and they're like, well, Coach, why are you so mad? We won the game. But they didn't play well and win. They lost. And so like Kiffin said, there's a lot of people that are, you know, resolved and the mentality of your football team, you kind of you feel like your back's against the wall after you drop one like that. And, you know, so they'll probably come in focused and ready to go.
JC, as we wrap things up here, about 3 minutes left, you look at this game, biggest matchup in this game, biggest key to this game for the Gamecocks.
Well, I think it's South Carolina's defense against the Ole Miss offense. You know, Ole Miss, defensively, their front seven is very, very good. 2 is a problem, Walter Nolan. He is we talked about why what the kid for Deion Walker from Kentucky. I don't know that Nolan's not better. I mean, he was outstanding against the Wildcats and couldn't be blocked. They've got good ends. Ivy's a good end. Their D-line and their front is stout. Their linebackers are a lot like South Carolina's linebackers were when Ellis Johnson was here. It's kind of blue-collar guys that are in place and make tackles, but their front's elite. Their secondary's a little suspect. Amos especially, he couldn't cover Dane Key and couldn't really cover anybody without pass interference. So there could be some opportunity for passing if you're the Gamecocks. But, the second part of it is Carolina's O-line cannot let the Ole Miss front just dominate them and expect to win. But the big key to me is Clayton White's defense, which has been excellent this year against that Ole Miss offense. I just would not be fooled by what they did against Kentucky. They've got a lot of firepower, and Juice Wells obviously, but Rashad Amos is in that backfield. Henry Parrish was a player South Carolina recruited, so a lot of familiarity there with regards to their personnel. But you got to keep Jackson Dart from lighting you up, and you can't let him have a game like Nussmeier did. You got to really affect him for all 4 quarters because they can put points on the board in a hurry.
Real quick, thoughts on Sellers and Sanders and their available, Lenore Sellers and Rocket Sanders and their availability from what you've heard.
I like Sellers to be able to play, and probably Sanders too. Sanders did not practice last week. He was getting treatment with an ankle. With anybody that carries the ball, a quarterback that runs, a running back, a wide receiver, it affects your ability to cut, accelerate. So if they're 100% or close to it, I think they'll play. I'm confident. I think they'll play. How effective either one will be remains to be seen, but I think they'll play.
Always appreciate your time, JC. Look forward to catching up with you again next week.
Thanks, fellas. Hopefully we're talking about a win. See you.
Definitely. Take care. Always appreciate the time JC Shurburtt gives us, and we'll discuss some of that in the next hour, get into a few other things as well. You're listening to Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jen Jensen. It's the early game. Was watching a Halloween movie, the other day. It was quite scary. I was terrified. But then I read from Zerorez about what happens to your carpets when you leave spots behind, when your pets they do something on your carpet and you're not pleased, or when your children go and spill grape juice on your carpet. That is actually terrifying. In this Halloween season, you don't want those terrifying spots on your carpet. You want to call Zerorez Carpet and Air Duct Cleaning to get your home insanely clean. Take advantage of their spooktacular savings and get 3 rooms of carpet cleaned for $129 when you mention me, Bill Gunner, at 107.5 The Game. You can easily schedule online, ZerorezColumbia.com, or you can give them a phone call, 803-262-4020. That's how you can get in touch with Zerorez today. Again, mention me, Bill Gunner, at 107.5 The Game. Get 3 rooms of carpet cleaned for just $129 when you mention me, Bill Gunner, at 107.5 The Game. 803-262-4020. Zerorez, spell it backwards or forwards. It's the right way to clean.
A report of an accident, I-77 southbound there at 12th Street. That would be exit 2 on I-77 southbound. Also finding an accident at exit 1. So I-77 southbound, exits 2 and 1. There appear to be back-to-back accidents. And some patchy dense fog continues to be noticed out there. So do be careful. It should be burning off here in just a bit. But we're looking for a high today of 83. It's going to be pretty much low to mid 80s for the remainder of the week. Saturday could be a mix of clouds and sun and a high of 85. So we'll take that. Ole Miss coming to town. Right now it's 67 on 107.5 The Game.
$8 a.m. as we roll into the final hour of the Tuesday morning episode. Reminder, Shane Beamer's press conference taking place at 1 o'clock today. You can hear it right here on 107.5 The Game, 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach, as we will learn more, get you ready for South Carolina and Mississippi. If you're hearing in the background an alarm just went off, I believe I've understood a little bit. I believe there's a water heater below us that has been having issues. So if you hear an alarm in the back, it looked to have freaked Preston out pretty good.
Listen, man, there's a lot going on right now.
If we didn't have another 10 minutes of this segment, I would have played through it and told you in the break. But
all right.
I didn't want you too freaked out. But
It also seems like the fire system is having a little bit of an issue because you hear kind of a buzzing noise coming out.
There is that too.
So we don't know what's going on. As long as we're on the air, we're good.
All right.
This is as far as we know, we're still on air. And
I'll let you. If there's something that happens, I'll run out.
If we see you running, we follow.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what we do. So
I'll do a little whistle. Have you ever done one like that?
Wow. No, that was something. Didn't see that one coming.
That was good.
Yeah.
That was.
Do you use that to get your children in strange places? That's the way my mother uses her whistle.
Really? I didn't a whole bunch, but this was something that it was, as a kid, it was something called a donkey call, and it's a different sound, so it sounds, I can't do the whistles with the fingers and whatever, but that one's pretty piercing.
Okay. All right. So we got that. Yeah. If you hear a sound in the back, it's not you, or it's not your car, it's not anything. It's something going on around here. So ignore it and just keep on going, because we got some.
So basically, like you're listening to Bill Gunter. Ignore it and just keep moving on.
Well, yeah, if you want to do that. No, we got some topics to get. We're going to get into the importance of this game coming up a little bit in the hour. David weighs in and says, we need this game to be able to finally say we turned the corner. Preston and I are going to debate how big of a game is, and who's this game bigger for? We'll get into that. A little bit. But first, recapping some things from yesterday. Sad day in the sporting world, obviously. If you haven't heard yet, obviously the passing of Dikembe Mutombo at 58 years of age, unfortunate due to brain cancer. I got to admit, I didn't know if this was announced publicly. I did not know it. But certainly, I never met him, never really, I don't want to say didn't pay attention to him. I think I paid attention to him more post-career when he started doing the commercials with the
no
taking the finger wag. Really, there. I knew him as you do the finger wag in the NBA, but this was a guy who really, again, if you listen to any of the tributes yesterday, was really beloved in the sports community. Was a guy that always had a smile on his face, always was in a good mood, and according to what everybody was saying yesterday, and also just was a humanitarian and really went out of his way to do things for his home country and try and help children over there. And it is a loss. It's a sad loss and unfortunate. But Dikembe Mutombo passing away at age 58 yesterday.
Yeah, it's definitely. We talked about him in the 6 o'clock hour, him being one of the sports characters because he was so long and lanky, blocking the shots and him having the extra voice, which was interesting. And it was really cool as you listen to him throughout his career and you listen to his English get better, because obviously he was from the Congo. He came to the United States, came to America to play basketball with John Thompson. John Thompson's passed away also. There's also that kind of idea of like just things that you grew up with slowly fading away. But he's just if you were into basketball in the 90s, Dikembe was a staple of that. The picture of him laying on the ground holding the ball after the
Nuggets, when they beat the 8-seed Nuggets, beat the 1-seed.
That's iconic.
Yeah.
That's something that if you were growing up during that time, or if you were watching basketball time, you remember. Then he goes on to play with the Hawks, and he was just a basketball player. Unfortunately, he has one of the best Jordan highlights where Jordan dunks over him and gives him the finger back, gives him not the finger, the no finger back to him. That's one of the best Jordan moments that Mutombo was a part of. And so just from on the court, really cool basketball player, not highly skilled. I don't think anybody would say he's not one of these guys that could step out and hit threes like our 7-footers can, but I think that's part of the charm of who Mutombo was. And then obviously the stuff off the court. Going back, doing stuff here in America, being a global ambassador for the game in Africa. You see some of those things. I was listening yesterday to what's my guy from the 76ers? I was just blocking to Joel Embiid, talking about the impact that seeing somebody from the continent have in the United States, how that definitely inspired him. So a lot of people were very sad about the I think not sudden, but I'm not sure if it was publicly known that he was dealing with that.
I don't think people realize just who Dikembe Mutombo was, just reading about him. He spoke English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and 5 Central African languages. He again, the humanitarian efforts. I mean, this was a guy that wasn't just a basketball player. He was incredibly wise, incredibly giving, and we lost a good one yesterday in Dikembe Mutombo. Also yesterday, Pete Rose passing away. We won't do it today. We'll take some time and look at it maybe when we get a little bit more of a downtime. I own a bunch of Pete Rose baseball cards, but the question on now I think will be, does Major League Baseball do something now to honor him? Where do they go now with him in the Hall of Fame now that he's had his passing? We know everybody at least probably knows how that story has played out over time. There's no questioning how great of a baseball player Pete Rose. There's absolutely zero. The question, I guess, is in ethics, to which he did break rules. Should have he been more contrite early on? Should have he apologized? Because it does feel like now if you make the mistake, get that apology out there within about 6 or 7 days and then let things blow over. But the direction that Pete Rose's post-life accolades, I guess, take.
Well, and again, I didn't get a chance to grow up seeing Pete Rose play, but what I understand about Pete Rose is the nickname Charlie Hustle is that even on that big red machine, he was probably the least talented of those folks that were on those teams. Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench, all these people who were excellent baseball players. Pete was probably the least talented, but he was kind of the heartbeat of the team and the way he played, and I think that's what people have really identified with him.
Joe Morgan. The arm, the flapping arm.
Chicken wing.
That was always.
Yeah.
And again, another thing when people grow up with, you grow up with teams, right? These eras of teams that sort of move through, and he was part of those units. So I know a lot of people can identify with him and probably feel something from the loss of Pete Rose yesterday.
So that was the sad portion of yesterday, the passing of Pete Rose, 83 years of age, the passing of Dikembe Mutombo at 58 years of age. If the good portion of yesterday, Braves and Mets, they split the 2-game the 2-game doubleheader yesterday, and was there a gentleman's handshake involved? Was there a, hey, you take one, we'll take the other, we'll go to the playoffs? Neither of us like the Diamondbacks. Braves win 3-0 in Game 2. So that means they'll start tonight out in San Diego, 8:30. As of now, Chris Sale not pitching tonight and not at least expected as of today.
I don't like that. That's blowing up my conspiracy theory.
It makes perfect sense. Look, I've never had a back spasm. I don't know what that entails or how that works. So let me be perfectly clear before I go down a conspiracy theory. But it would make perfect sense for him to he's spasmed up 24 hours before the start of the wild card series. But tomorrow he can go in game 2.
I'll tell you this. I've torn my ACL. Give me the ACL.
Really?
Yeah.
Jen, you ever had a back spasm?
Yeah.
You with Preston on that?
Yeah, because boy, you can't move everything.
You can do.
You breathe, you move your legs, like everything is connected.
So
to your
what y'all are saying is, if Chris Sale pitches today or tomorrow,
heroic.
It is without a doubt a conspiracy. There is no questions is what y'all are telling me.
Well, I mean, the thing about back spasms is they are isolated, and so they can come and go.
Oh,
so it's not as if it lingers, but I would just say it was a convenient. It's a convenient injury.
He was he went down.
Hard to build a case against.
I think they said about 30 minutes prior. I was watching. I think it was about 30 minutes prior to the start of that game, and so that brought in Conway's on Colby Holmes, who had to go out and pitch for the Braves. And Grant Holmes. Colby's the brother. Grant Holmes came in and was absolutely fantastic. Braves win 3-0, so they'll start today with Major League Baseball. The playoffs get going 2:30 today. Detroit at Houston. That'll actually be on ABC. Kansas City at Baltimore. That's 4:00 today. The Mets and the Brewers this afternoon, 5:30 on ESPN. And as we just mentioned, the Braves and the Padres coming up 8:30 tonight, and all 3 of those games will take place, or if there is a need for a third, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is how they'll go. So we got that coming up here over the next few days to try and figure out the rest of the playoffs there. It appears starting on Saturday will be the division series there with all 4 games getting going. Philadelphia, Los Angeles, the Yankees, and the Guardians hosting those, and that will start Saturday. So it's a little playoff baseball look. We'll come back. We'll get into this. The co-pilot weighs in this morning. He says, biggest game of Shane Beamer's career. Oh, we're going to convince y'all of this again, aren't we? And then he says 110% RIP Pete Rose every day. I'm hustling. So we'll get in.
Ooh, nice.
Get into a little bit of that this morning. 803-404-6100. You're listening to Preston Thorne, Bill Gunner, Jen Jensen. It's the early game. Is your HVAC system living on borrowed time? Do you think your system is the oldest system in the Midlands? If so, you need to head over to AAA Heating and Air's website, myoldair.com, and you can enter to win a new HVAC system today. It is really that simple. AAA Heating and Air will draw one lucky winner for every 100 entries. You've heard that right, a new HVAC system. So don't wait. Head over to myoldair.com. Register today. If you have the oldest HVAC system in the Midlands, you could win a brand new HVAC system. Head over to myoldair.com today and register. Again, for every 100 entries, AAA Heating and Air will select a winner. You can also give them a phone call, 803-677-1500. You can get a free replacement estimate if you're in the market for a brand new heating and air unit, and they have 12 months, no interest, no payments right now taking place. Contact AAA Heating and Air today. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you.
And we do have a couple accidents to make you aware of. Boiling Springs Road near Pond Branch Road. Also, I-77 southbound at exits 2 and 1. Both have accidents reported. So a little extra time if you are heading down I-77 southbound approaching I-26. Your forecast, we're looking for a high today of 83, 84 tomorrow, 85 on Thursday. Just kind of keeping in that pattern at least until or throughout the weekend. So looking for Saturday, potentially partly cloudy, and a high of 85. So going to be very nice this weekend for football. 67 currently on the early game.
$8:17 as we roll along here on your Tuesday morning, reminding you that we will be out and about this week. We'll start tomorrow from 9 to noon. Excuse me, tomorrow's Wednesday. We'll start Thursday from 9 to noon. We will be out at Gamecock Central Takeover at Gold Line Framing in West Columbia. You can go by and hang out with the 9 to noon crowd. And then on Friday from 3 to 6, the Friday Tailgate Show live from Columbia Craft on Green Street in the Vista. So if you want to get out and hang out with us, make sure you come by 9 to noon tomorrow. Stop it, Gunner. Tomorrow's Wednesday. 9 to noon on Thursday when Gamecock Central takes over Gold Line Framing out in West Columbia. And then Friday, the Friday Tailgate Show live from Columbia Craft, Green Street in the Vista. Goes to show you how excited I am for this coming weekend. 3:30 game, ESPN, and the importance of the game when I'm already on to Wednesday. I'm thinking it's already Wednesday. I've sped up my clock. I have enough problems calling Thursday the start of a weekend. I'm starting to call Wednesday the start of a weekend because, Preston, yeah, it's a legitimate question. Again, much like LSU, now you don't have game day here, but once again, there are so many things that are on the line. A couple people weighing in here. I mentioned David on our live stream that you can go to. He said we need this game to be able to finally say we turned the corner. Then we get a text in this morning. This is coming from Chris, and he says to hear South Carolina needs this victory over Ole Miss to turn the corner is annual narrative, which he's not wrong on that. I will say Preston and I are doing a bit of a gig, but also when you're trying to get over the hump, it does make these games kind of the most important game of the year. When you're trying to get over the hump, that is something to say.
Well, then the narrative, the false narrative is that there's a hump, right? The thing is, you have to get over these things and turn. You have to do this continuously to keep continuously moving forward. And so, yeah, there is some truth to the idea of this game being huge. And what I'm wondering is if the game got bigger because they lost.
So no, let me say, Chris comes back here and says that, and JC pointed this out. And now this is the serious portion of the of the gig. This is
a new segment,
because this is where I think Chris is wrong, but I also think he's right. I don't think you win this game and say you turn the corner.
Okay.
But J.C. Shurburtt pointed this out in the last hour, and I agree. I think you wrote it down when he said it. Peer teams in the SEC. That was a great way to describe it. Peer teams. And, yes, Mississippi is one of those teams that annually, I get it, everybody has a year here or there, and Mississippi's been better than South Carolina the last 5 years. They've got 2 double-digit win seasons. But annually, these two teams are in very similar spots. And to climb the ladder of a 16-team conference, you have to do what South Carolina's done. You've got to beat Kentucky. Check. You got to beat Missouri. No check on that one. You got to beat a team like a Mississippi or a Mississippi State or an Arkansas or so forth or so on. And we can all come up with teams that right there. South Carolina's right around that group. It doesn't mean you've arrived, just like I don't think beating Tennessee and Clemson 2 years ago meant you arrived. but it did push the program forward. Beating Mississippi on Saturday does push the program forward. Why, Preston, and why does it become one of the biggest it becomes the biggest game of the year at this point? Because Mississippi has a 12 by its name. I don't know whether they deserve it or not. When we've had a good conversation the last 2 days about trying to figure out when we know who a team is and what they are. South Carolina beat number 4 Mississippi back in the day on a Thursday night, and it started the process of pushing the team over the hump. It didn't matter whether Mississippi deserved to be number 4 or not. All you had was a lot of young kids who were recruits looking, oh, they just beat number 12 Mississippi. And, man, look at how raucous that environment is. That starts to push your team over the hump.
Yeah, propelled. And you don't know that when you're doing it. You only can figure that out later. And you look back and say, oh, that was the time when it actually happened. So, yeah, this is something important. And I thought that phrase, peer program, we're like in the middle class of the SEC. There are some schools that have a lot more than us. We're not worried about what they do. We're not worried about their boats and their houses and things. But the people that live in our neighborhood, we're looking around the corner like, oh.
Yeah, you're going, how does Mississippi get like this?
Bill Gunn got a new car, huh?
Yeah. How are they driving that?
Exactly. And you're just starting to figure things out. And we're right in those class with those schools. I thought that was a really excellent point about them being a peer program.
Yeah, I mean, to go and there is an element to this right now. When you're in that middle tier, every game is the most important of the year because you've got to, every game. But there are certain ones, again, that push your program forward. This year, I think Richard hit the nail on the head. Right now, I am not impressed with Oklahoma and or Texas A&M. Those will be huge games after, and that's why. And look, people are saying that's why Tennessee and Clemson. Number one, they weren't the most important games of the year. They were from the standpoint of getting bowl eligible, which South Carolina did indeed do. Or I shouldn't say getting bowl eligible, but improving your bowl eligibility. South Carolina had 6 wins at that point, but that helps you in recruiting. That helps you showing that environment. This helps push your program forward to getting toward 7 or 8 or even 9 victories if necessary.
We're not going to do it today. We're going to give everybody a little bit of homework because we're going to be debuting a segment, and the segment is going to be called The Biggest Game. And we want you all to join us in trying to figure out why this game is the biggest game of insert name here's season, career, life, whatever you want to do. Because there are some arguments to be made about this game being extremely important for a lot of people that are involved in this particular game.
Part of it is just the standpoint of you're going to go into next week's game. South Carolina has had a good month of September. The month of September and include August 31st in that. But that month was really good for South Carolina.
No. Don't include August 31st in that.
No, you won. I told remember, don't be that guy. Remember last year when I said Jacksonville State was a great game? It was fun, and I enjoyed it. And I'm sorry all of you were upset that it took a pick 6 at the end to survive, but I loved it because it was a beautiful day, and we tailgated and had fun with my kids.
But I'm saying for statistic purposes, September was great. August?
Fine. Okay, if we want to go down. But to that point, let's be honest. You lose to Mississippi, you're going to be – it's an uphill climb against Alabama. We can do this. We can look past Mississippi and we can say, oh, boy, that Alabama game.
We're working on something.
You don't want to trash the momentum you got from September and even what little momentum you got off of a great game against LSU. To where people were like, hey, that was a great game to watch. Look at that environment. Man, they were pretty cool. You don't want to trash that with getting to 3-3 mid-October.
Yeah, I guess what I'm doing is I'm trying to recalibrate what is this game. You brought up another good point about is it just going to be satisfying to beat Lane Kiffin and his receiver coming into town? Would that be just satisfying? Or is it actually a big game? I thought it was a big game because they were going to have a lower number next to them.
Yeah.
They still will have a pretty low number, higher than ours is, but am I convinced that Ole Miss is any good? I don't know because we talked about who they've played: Furman, Georgia Southern, Wake Forest. Wake Forest said, "Hey, listen, we don't even want to do that anymore." Middle Tennessee State, they haven't played anybody, and Lane Kiffin was saying that he doesn't think that they were prepared to play SEC opponents. Well, let's see. So, me personally, I'm trying to recalibrate and figure out what exactly does this game mean in the season?
Well, it's just like beating Kentucky in week 2 was all of a sudden a huge victory. But you looked at it and you're like, well, maybe they're awful. Maybe they're ridiculously bad. Then they play Georgia to within 2 points. Then they go down and they beat Mississippi. Now we're like, and if you saw the SEC shorts yesterday, Jen, did you catch the SEC shorts yesterday?
That was very funny.
Where the South Carolina fan standing next to the Kentucky, and he's like, they should be top 25. And we beat them, and we scored with ease on this. Like, and it's just saying, like, hey, all of a sudden South Carolina now saying, no, Kentucky's really, really good, and we smoked them. Mm-hmm. Because a few weeks ago we thought Kentucky was bad. I'll go back to last year, Preston. Remember when halfway through the season we thought North Carolina actually was really good? We were like, that's not a bad loss. And then North Carolina proceeded to lose 4 out of their final 6. And we're like, well, it's not quite as good as it looked initially. Like, it is hard to figure out early in the season whom these teams are. And Mississippi's about to go on a stretch where we're going to see who they are. South Carolina this week, LSU next week. This is a massive game for for Mississippi.
I'm working on something.
Yeah.
I'm working on two things. Working on two things of how big this game is actually for Ole Miss, and also this is not we won't put this in the category of rivalry like we did Kentucky. We're not going to do that. But I will say there have been some moments in Ole Miss games. There have been some moments. And so I'm gonna do some research to try and think about some of the moments that have been with us versus Ole Miss.
I'm going to come up with 3 right off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. Now, look, part of this is we're doing this tongue-in-cheek. We're a morning show. We like to make you laugh. We're doing this tongue-in-cheek. We also like to completely overblow things. We don't want you to play this game, which I get what this texter's saying. The game is the most important simply because it's the next game. No, we need to find more reasons than it's simply the next game.
Was that Will Muschamp? Muschamp, did you text in? Thank you.
It's a 478 area. It is a 478 area code. I don't know where that's at. But
thanks, Coach. Bill Belichick?
Yeah.
Was that you?
Yeah. We need you to be a little more creative than it's. We got it. It is the next game. We tried to figure out how to hype the Akron game as the most important game. We need something more creative than just, well, it's the next game. 803-404-6100. How you can weigh in. We'll come back and we'll get into a few other things. We didn't play any, at least we ain't yesterday. And we've got a couple we might be able to get to here. We got some. 803-404-6100 is the early game. Bill Gunner for the Mortgage Guru, Jacob Crowder with First Palmetto Bank. Let me tell you right now, if you are in the market, if you're thinking about purchasing a home, you need somebody who can navigate the interest rates, finds you the absolute best APR. That's what Jacob Crowder does. He helped me about 4 years ago get into a great condo on the lake, and he is ready to help you. All you need to do is give him a phone call this morning, 803-719-1005. Let me give you an example. Right now, if you're thinking about moving into Richland County, if you've been looking around, looking at the back half of the year, and you're thinking, I want to move, and you found that perfect house in Blythewood, northeast, southeast of the I-20 corridor, First Palmetto Bank and Jacob Crowder, they are offering you a 4.99% interest with a 5.075 APR on a 30-year fixed mortgage. For more information, call Jacob Crowder today, 803-719-1005. He's the mortgage guru, Jacob Crowder with First Palmetto Bank.
I-77 southbound at exits 2 and 1, incidences at both locations, and a little farther north on I-77 southbound, exit 17. So really coming southbound on I-77 southbound, there's just several accidents to keep an eye out for. I-77 northbound and southbound at I-20, there's an issue. I-77 northbound at Fort Jackson Boulevard. And again, then I-77 southbound at 17, 2, and 1. So be careful if you're cruising on any part of I-77 at this point this morning. And then Boiling Springs Road near Palm Branch Road, an accident there. Low to mid-80s really is what we're going to see all week long. Should be 85 for game day on Saturday.
.834 as we roll along. Reminder to go to 1075thegame.com and register for the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest. No special teams touchdowns so far, so that means this week the pot is $500. If you've already registered, you don't have to go register again. But if you have not registered, you need to go to 1075thegame.com. Doesn't matter if you're here in Columbia or Florence or Myrtle Beach or in Charleston or wherever else you might be listening. Go to 1075thegame.com, get registered, and if South Carolina scores a special teams touchdown, you can win the current pot that is $500. If nobody scores a special teams touchdown, there will be another $100 in it, and next week will be $600. You see how that works? So go to 1075thegame.com, get registered, go ahead, get ready for the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest. 803-404-6100 as we roll along. Did not get into any at least we ain'ts yesterday. And you might have some in the NFL, you might have some in college. If you're very into this kind of thing, you might have some in high school. If you are one of those people that goes and sits around a fast food chain in the morning and has coffee and makes fun of your rival. Totally understand. Weigh in with your at least we ain'ts. 803-404-6100. Preston, you got a few to get to?
Yeah. This one's going to go shout out to my cousin on my second side removed.
Oh, no.
Peyton Thorne, Hugh Freeze, Auburn. At least we ain't them. They lost one. I guess it was Sooner Magic. I don't know if that's what I didn't even know that was a phrase.
I didn't know either.
I don't know if we acknowledge that in the SEC, but whatever. Yeah, they are struggling. Peyton threw the pick six, and they came back and they lost. But he tried to throw three more before that. I actually watched that game. He actively attempted to throw three interceptions, and Oklahoma was just like, nah, we're not going to have these yet, until they needed it, and they had to pick six. I would not like to be in Auburn's shoes, so I'm going to go with Auburn for at least we ain't.
Okay, not anything wrong with that. I'm gonna go over to the Big 12. You know, everybody wants to move up. Everybody wants to get into the Power Four. Everybody's ready to jump in and start participating. Well, Houston, you got your wish. You're now in the Big 12. Welcome to the Big 12. Welcome to being a part of big-time football and what you're doing. Dana Holgorsen, last year, fired, right? He's out after 5 seasons. They were in their first year of Big 12 play last year. Are you just now realizing that?
A little bit.
Dana Holgorsen in his first year in the Big 12, they were 4-8. Wasn't very good last year. All right, bring in Willie Fritz. Willie Fritz comes over.
Okay.
Former Tulane head coach.
Yeah.
Not only are they 1-4 to start the season, Preston, they've lost to UNLV, they've lost to Oklahoma, they've lost to Cincinnati and Iowa State. They have not yet scored in Big 12 play this year. They were outscored 34-0 at Cincinnati, and this past week 20-0 to Iowa State. In other words, 54-0 so far in Big 12 play. They're at TCU Friday night.
Well, okay, there's still a chance.
1-4.
TCU's not playing well right now.
TCU's, I think I just saw 3-2.
Yeah, to be honest, I was just surprised that Dana Holgorsen's not coaching in there anymore. That was a surprise to me, even though I knew Willie Fritz wasn't at Tulane. I'm not sure where I thought he went, but kind of stopped paying attention to Houston.
There you go.
And I guess that's what happens when you decide that you want to move up, get out of the G5, moving with the big boys.
You got to be ready. You got to be ready to move, and it doesn't help probably that You got Dallas, the Dallas area there, and this is not an at least we ain't, but in the Dallas area, you got SMU who, SMU's right there in contention for the ACC championship. They're 4-1 on the season, 1-0 in conference after blasting Florida State. That was my short jab at Florida State, and at least we ain't.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't even know if we need to do that anymore, right? Because everybody's very clear on who Florida State is, and we're not that. We've moved on past that. I'm gonna go with a little bit of NFL real quickly on at least we ain't, and there's a lot of opportunities that we can do to use this, but I think I'm gonna go with at least we ain't. Ooh, this is tough. This is tough. Cleveland Browns.
Okay.
At least we're not the Cleveland Browns. At least we didn't dump all of this money into a very questionable contract only to have it not pay off and not looking like this is going to be something that's working. And then our only option behind that is Jameis Winston.
You know what, though? In the era of NIL, that can apply to college football as well. If you've got an NIL kid who's come in, that's got lots of money, and is not performing. So, yeah, see, there you go. And that Deshaun Watson thing is just bad. I mean, it's unfortunately, it's a situation. I don't know what they're going to do to try and remove themselves from that situation, but it feels like they're going to try and do something to get out of it.
Well, shout out to our folks in the purple britches. But in this USA Today's power ranking, 30 teams, 31-32, the Cleveland Browns and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, the Jags, by the way, that's now 9 straight losses for Trevor Lawrence as a starter. I don't know where the line begins and where it ends on biggest first number one draft pick busts, but I've now seen this, and this is, again, what sports media does, right? We're like, oh, yeah, biggest bust ever. Trevor Lawrence is trending toward that title right now because it's starting to pop up on some of the national scenes.
Yeah, it's just when people are, I guess after 9 games, maybe you start to pay attention. So people have their eye focused on that. Hopefully, I like Trevor. Hopefully he gets it together, but it's not trending in a good direction for him.
All right, everybody wants to go to the bigger, better, badder conference. Welcome, UCLA. Come on into the Big Ten. We know you wanted to be here. Welcome. UCLA opened the season with a 16-13 victory over Hawaii. Since then, they have been beaten by Indiana, LSU, and Oregon. LSU, obviously not a Big Ten team. Indiana, though, well-known Indiana, goes into the Rose Bowl and beats them 42-13. Oregon beat them 34-14. In between that, they lost to LSU 34-13. I say this because UCLA, Preston, not only are they 1-3 on the season, they've been outscored by their 4 opponents 123-59. They're giving up points and not scoring points. It's a bad, bad, bad combination.
Is that an analytic? Is that one of these new fancy analytics? If you give up a lot of points and don't score a lot of points, what's the
new fancy ones? Yeah, I think that's what Mark Stoops was referencing the other day.
Yeah, that's not going well for UCLA. Maybe it was started the season with Deshaun Foster's with that press conference where he said
lost that one too.
We're here.
Yeah.
They didn't even win the press conference.
No, didn't even win. At least Oregon went to Big Ten Media Day and put a big duck in the river up there.
Yeah.
UCLA stumbled and bumbled through a press conference.
Yeah, that's rough. I don't see that going well for them.
You got any more?
No, that's it. I think I'm good on that. I mean, obviously, I think there's clearly you could do Florida State, you could do North Carolina, you can do a lot of different things, but those are obvious answers.
I think I asked you, I asked you and Jamie, I believe, who's in bigger trouble, Florida State or North Carolina? And it does feel like it's Florida State because they're kind of tied to Mike Norvell right now. It just takes the right person to eject Mac Brown out of the head coaching seat there and get in fresh hope, new hope, whomever that might be.
Yeah, and as I said last week, when you start having that thought of maybe I should resign or retire, probably should do it.
It's over.
And I mean, we've obviously experienced that here as a fan base when our legendary aging coach decided he had enough. And it might be time for Mac also.
803-404-6100. We'll come back. We'll wrap everything up here. You're listening to the early game. Bill Gunner for Mid-State Roofing, where for nearly 30 years, Larry Leitner and the family, they've been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry. It's their proven history that is your assurance that their professionals will get the job done in a proper and timely manner while providing the service you expect. That's right. They are going to make sure that roof of yours is ready. And they do this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They are ready to help you with a maintenance contract. So give them a phone call, 803-356-1919. Again, that's 803-356-1919. You will either speak with an on-call technician or a Mid-State Roofing employee that'll be ready to help you with that maintenance contract. And again, it doesn't matter if you're here in Columbia, if you're in Florence, if you're in Myrtle Beach, or if you're somewhere else in this great state. You know what? Mid-State Roofing is there to help you. So whether it's a high-rise or a hospital, manufacturing or industrial, Mid-State Roofing designs and installs bonded systems with a protective guarantee. Give them a phone call today, 803-356-1919. A reminder coming up 1 o'clock today, the Shane Beamer press conference will take place. You can hear it here on 107.5 The Game. You can hear it in Myrtle Beach, 100.3 The Game. It'll be our first time we get to hear from Shane Beamer since last week, so we'll get an update as to the status of Lenore Sellers and Rocket Sanders. Be surprised. I'd be surprised if Lenore Sellers did not play. I don't. The severity we've had. What are people most amateur in? What do we get the most amateur? Meteorologists or doctors?
Ooh, I was gonna say doctors very quickly, but meteorologist is right second. Yeah, we just don't know. We'll see. I guess what we don't know is the severity of it to start with.
Right.
So with that being said, 2 weeks is a pretty substantial time to rest and recover. If it was not as bad as...
And it really almost be 3 weeks by the time we get to Friday.
Yeah. I would suggest that he was playing, but who knows? I don't know.
I think he's good. Rocket, on the other hand, that one might be a little more severe. I do wonder, as you mentioned, the severity of the ankle injury, the fact that he came back out and tried to go, as opposed to them just looking to be like, nah, you can't. You're done. And then you think about the time off he had to that he had to heal and to kind of be ready to go. And also, if you just base it on the fact that, how was it worded leading into the Akron game? Oh, he was doing stuff. Every day he was doing a little more. Yeah, a little more. I'm assuming that then last week he did a little more, and this week so we'll see. But that's at 1 o'clock today. The Shane Beamer press conference, where we'll get our first words on the injury situation. And then also just a reminder, Thursday at 6 o'clock, Carolina Calls with Shane Beamer and Todd Ellis. That'll be right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia, 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. So we've covered a lot of areas here today. Would you like to hold your practice rant one more time to cover what Paul Maneri is speaking? Because, by the way, scrimmage today. 2-inning scrimmage over at Founders Park, 4:30 today, free to the public if you want to go. You can get out and go check out the baseball team and get another scrimmage today. They're scrimmaging Monday, Tuesday. They scrimmaged Monday, scrimmaging today, Tuesday, scrimmaging Wednesday, scrimmaging Thursday. That's their scrimmage days. What day are they not scrimmaging?
They're not scrimmaging on Saturdays because old Paul Maneri has told us, he's laid the mandate down and told us that Saturdays in the fall are for football.
I haven't practiced on a Saturday my entire coaching career, and that was by design, because I'm a big believer in the student athletes having the experience of being a student. And what is Saturday afternoons in the fall for? Football, right? And I want them to go have fun and be with their friends and just enjoy it. And I've been this way all the way back to the Air Force Academy at Notre Dame, at LSU, and I'll do the same here. I don't believe in practicing fall baseball on Saturday. I believe in them being college kids and having a good time.
That's right. World Series champion, legendary coach, does not practice on Saturdays in the fall. And my proposition is that if you're not in season, then you need to protect your weekends. And you do not have to have practices for your sport if it's not in season. I would also like to suggest this, Bill, and I just thought about this. Coach Maneri is a veteran. He's been around for a long time. No practices on Saturday. He didn't say anything about Sunday.
That's a good point.
And I would like to tell
not an NFL guy.
I would like to tell all of those baseball players, don't have too much fun on Saturday, because he's going to get it out you on Sunday. And he's probably going to let you know about it. He's like, oh, you had a lot of fun yesterday, huh? So have your nice reserved fun, but know that Sunday's coming.
803-404-6100. There you go. I also think being at Air Force, then at Notre Dame, then at LSU, it wouldn't surprise me if there were some people who were like, no, you're not practicing on Saturday. Those kids need to be in the student section pulling for their...
Also, I'm sure he might have maybe did it one time and just realized that his players' minds were not there at all. And he's like, what are we even doing this for? You know what? Sometimes it's better just to give them the day off and act like you're giving them the day off just so you avoid a terrible practice.
That's also true. It's also true. Texter says, I don't remember, but I feel like this texter, Mac, is wrong. He says Sellers and Sanders are both on top of the depth chart for this week. That is true. They both are there. I don't remember, though, the Akron game. Not for Sanders. Rocket Sanders was fine. He got injured, I think, on the third play. But do you remember if Lenore was there an or was Lenore or did Lenore Sailors be on top of the depth chart for that week? I can't find it. It's not on the. They don't have the game notes up anymore. And let me just say this also, Mac, and anybody else. I am still scarred from the Will Muschamp experience of depth charts, where you couldn't have found anything on the internet more irrelevant than a Will Muschamp released depth chart.
Yeah, and yes, he's at the top of that, which indicates that he would be the starter. That still doesn't indicate his health
right
for the game.
Because I think it was Xavier Legette, who, by the way, had a touchdown catch over the weekend, but who spent a whole season at the top of the depth chart, only for us to discover after Will Muschamp was fired that he'd been injured all season.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I understand what Mac's saying, but yeah, we'll see. We'll learn. Again, 1 o'clock today, Shane Beamer's press conference, and we'll talk a lot about that tomorrow. We'll also get back into some Lane Kiffin. So what did we come to? What's our conclusion on Lane Kiffin?
Our conclusion is that Lane's been around for a long time, and when somebody's around that long, you have enough chances to form opinions about him. My conclusion is that Lane is a good coach. He is not a great coach, and he has yet to win the big game to put him over the hump.
So it's a big game for him. It's a big game for him. You go home on the road and you drop another one like this for him. So there's a lot of pressure. Hope the people down in Oxford are listening. Lane Kiffin's listening. A lot of pressure. I'd be pretty nervous. I am pretty nervous. I thought most of the day was Wednesday, just to show you. Hey, we will do it all again tomorrow. Have a lot of fun. We'll get into that Shane Beamer stuff, and who knows what else we'll find to make fun of. Hope y'all have a great rest of the day.
Appreciate y'all.
We'll catch you tomorrow. For Jen Jensen, for Preston Thorne, I'm Bill Gunner. It's been the early game.